He never thought that saving a stranger's life would change his own forever. The hospital lights were harsh, the air thick with antiseptic, but when he signed those donor papers, he didn't care about the risks or the pain, only that someone out there, fighting for one more day, would get a chance to live. What he didn't know was that the woman whose life he was saving wasn't just anyone. She was the billionaire CEO whose company he once applied to, and got rejected because he was too ordinary. And now, fate had tied their hearts together in the most extraordinary way. The rain hadn't stopped all week. It came down in sheets, washing the city in a dull gray. Inside a small apartment on the edge of Karachi, Adil sat by his daughter's bedside, holding her tiny hand. Hania was barely 7 but already too familiar with hospital visits. She had kidney problems, and the bills kept piling up like walls he couldn't climb. Adil worked double shifts as a delivery driver, saving every rupee, but life was cruelly expensive for a man who'd already lost his wife to illness. That morning, as he left the hospital, he saw a notice board: urgent, kidney donor needed. Blood type O. He froze. His own blood type. He looked closer at the details: a woman in critical condition, no family, no compatible donor. The name printed at the bottom was Zara Rahim. It meant nothing to him at the time. Just a name. Just another person fighting to live. He went to the front desk and said quietly, "Test me." The doctor looked surprised. "You understand the risks, right? You're not a relative." Adil nodded. "Doesn't matter. If I can help, I will." 3 days later, he was lying in a hospital bed beside the operating room, signing forms with shaking hands. He didn't ask for money or recognition. He just thought of how, somewhere in this same building, a stranger was praying for a miracle, the same way he had prayed countless times for his daughter. The surgery was long. When he woke up, the room spun, his body weak, but his heart felt strangely at peace. He didn't know who she was, and he didn't need to. He had done something good in a world that rarely gave him a chance to do much. Zara Rahim opened her eyes 2 days later, disoriented but alive. She had been battling kidney failure for months, kept alive only through machines and determination. Everyone around her, doctors, assistants, lawyers, treated her like she was made of gold, but not one of them looked at her as a person. They looked at her as Zara Rahim, the CEO of Rahim Industries, one of the biggest corporations in the country. The woman who owned skyscrapers, tech firms, and dreams she no longer believed in. When she asked who her donor was, the doctor hesitated. "He doesn't want attention." He asked to remain anonymous. But Zara couldn't forget the thought that somewhere, someone gave up a piece of their life for her without asking for anything. Weeks later, as part of her recovery, she insisted on finding him, not as a CEO, but as a human being who needed to say thank you. She used her company's resources to track the donor's paperwork, eventually leading her to a small apartment address. When she got there, she almost didn't knock. The door was old, the paint fading, the sound of a child coughing faintly from inside. She raised her hand anyway and knocked softly. The door opened, and there he was, the man who had saved her life, standing in a simple white shirt, exhaustion in his eyes, humility in his posture. He looked startled to see her, holding a grocery bag in one hand. "Can I help you?" he asked politely. She smiled gently. "You already did." Zara stood in his small living room, completely out of place. The billionaire and the delivery driver, two worlds that were never meant to cross, now shared the same air. Hania peeked from behind the door, shy but curious. Zara knelt and smiled at her. "You must be Hania," she said, signing softly as if she had practiced it before. "Your father is a hero." Adil looked away, uncomfortable with the word. I just did what anyone would have done. Anyone? She repeated softly. No, Mr. Adil. Not anyone would give up a part of themselves for a stranger. Days turned into weeks. Zara visited often, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes just sitting quietly, talking to Hania while Adil worked late shifts. For the first time in years, she felt something that no mansion or business meeting had ever given her, peace. One evening, Adil came home to find Zara helping Hania with her homework, laughter filling the small room. It was such a rare sound that he froze in the doorway, afraid to break the moment. You don't have to keep doing this, he said quietly later. You've done enough. Zara smiled sadly. You gave me my life back, Adil. The least I can do is make sure you both start living yours again. But fate had more to test them with. A month later, Adil's company downsized, and he lost his job. With hospital bills rising again for Hania's checkups, he was drowning. He refused Zara's financial help, pride was all he had left. I can't take money from you, he said firmly. You're not charity. Zara didn't argue. She just watched him walk away, knowing how much pain hid behind his stubbornness. That night, she made a decision that would change both their lives again. The next morning, Adil was called to a new delivery job. When he reached the address, his heart skipped. It was Rahim Industries. He hesitated, but a security guard handed him an envelope with his name on it. Inside was an offer letter, a permanent job, triple the pay, benefits for Hania's treatment, and one line at the bottom from someone who finally has a reason to smile again. Tears blurred his vision. He didn't need to ask who it was from. Months passed. Adil thrived in his new job. Zara and Hania became inseparable, their bond growing beyond friendship. But there was still something unspoken between Adil and Zara, something delicate, like a secret blooming in silence. On the anniversary of the transplant, Zara invited him to the hospital's donor ceremony. As they stood on stage, she turned to the crowd and said, "There's a man here today who gave me something no amount of wealth could buy, a second chance." Adil shifted awkwardly as everyone looked his way. Zara smiled and continued, "And he didn't just give me his kidney, he gave me purpose. He reminded me that life isn't measured by what we own, but by what we give." Then, turning to him, her eyes glistening, she signed softly, "You saved my life. Let me be part of yours." A hush fell over the hall. Adil's throat tightened. He didn't know how to respond, so he simply took her hand. That was all she needed. As they walked off the stage, Hania ran ahead, laughing, and for the first time, both of them followed, not as the poor man and the billionaire, but as two hearts that fate had sewn together, because sometimes, life doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you never knew you needed.